there, I'm Mia Malika Henderson, and this is On Background. Immigration reform has fallen by the wayside on Capitol Hill in many ways, living in the shadow of yet another budget debate and various other issues. This after the House failed to take up the Senate-passed bill in July. But now, at the bottom of Capitol Hill, Congress has a new neighbor. It's the Fast for Families campaign, a group of activists who've erected tents on the mall and are fasting to pressure Congress to take up immigration reform. The campaign has grabbed the nation's attention over the last month as Congress seems poised to address this issue once again. On Background producer, a terrific producer, Julianne McKellogg, has their story. Take a look.
I myself grew up in an immigrant household. I'm not an immigrant myself. Growing up in that environment, you see the toll it takes on family members, and my house was a port of entry for many family members who came undocumented.
The fear that many of these people live under, just trying to come to a country and get a better opportunity and more opportunity for their family, it's a strong urge in your heart that says you have to do something.
That's Philip Agnew. He's the executive director of the social action group Dream Defenders. He came from Miami to be part of a protest calling for immigration reform. It's known as the Fast for Families. Well-known immigration activist Eliseo Medina launched the movement on November 12th. After 22 days of only drinking water, he passed a cross necklace signifying his participation onto Reverend Jim Wallace of Sojourners.
We're now beginning, and we're going to go as long as we can. They're there, we're here, and we'll keep being here until they pay attention. We're ready for reform now. We can't wait any longer. The country's ready. The country wants it. They're stopping it. So we're here to say, stop blocking democracy, listen to stories, and fix a system that is hurting so many people. The time to change it is now. We waited too long. The time is now.
They're being heard and seen. Their large tent sits at the base of Capitol Hill alongside more than 400 crosses, representing those who died on the border last year. The President and First Lady have paid a visit, and Democratic lawmakers are also getting on board to express their frustration with House Speaker John Boehner's refusal to take up the Senate's immigration bill. Congressman Joe Kennedy of Massachusetts took part in the fast, as did Congressman Sean Maloney of New York.
Well, I think what's absolutely clear is the Republican leadership, unfortunately, has made a decision that it will not act. And that's why this action, Fast for Families, is so important, because it's saying we're not going to wait.
Congressman Mark Takano of California was inspired to fast by his own family story.
My paternal grandfather came to this country at the age of 18 in 1916. He stowed away on a lumber ship to Tacoma, Washington from Hiroshima, Japan. He could not naturalize because there were laws against Asian Americans naturalizing.
Thousands of solidarity fasters across the country have pledged with Agnew and Wallace to keep the movement going until immigration reform is done.
Fasting and prayer changes us, maybe it'll change them too. That's why we're here. So I'll do it as long as I can.
Eliseo Medina is the face of the Fast for Families campaign. The Mexican-American union leader has made immigration reform his life's work, and his dedication very much shows. He lost 24 pounds during his 22-day fast. He joins me now to talk about the fast and what comes next. Sir, thank you so much for coming in today. I want to just start off here with why you decided that a fast was the way to go.
Well, you know, I'm an immigrant. My father used to be a guest worker and then an undocumented worker. So I've been living with this broken immigration system all of my life. And it pained me to see that an issue of such critical importance to this country was being sidelined, was being made into a political football, was the subject of politics. And lost in all of that was the fact that this is about human beings, about people who are being torn from their families when they get deported, whose children are left behind wondering what's going to happen to their daddies, people who die in the desert anonymously that nobody ever knows who they are. And so I felt that it was important that we put a human face, an expression of why this matters to us. So we decided that through our sacrifice at the steps of the Capitol Hill would be the best way of reminding Speaker Boehner of the human cost of inaction. And that's why we did it, and I think that the American people has really responded to our plea for help and trying to convince the Congress to do the right thing.
And this is a debate that's been going on for years, right?
Yes.
In Washington, McCain, he had a bill in 2007 around comprehensive immigration reform. Reagan dealt with this as well. Why did you pick this moment now in the middle of this debate that's been going on pretty feverishly, at least since this last election?
Well, you know, when everything began to appear that it was going to get gridlock because of the budget deficit debate, the government shutdown, and those are all critically important issues to America. But we felt that this particular issue is a matter of life and death, and it wasn't being paid attention to by our Congress people. And so we felt that this was the right time. It's the holidays, it's when people's minds are on something else, but it's also a time when I think people are more open to the idea of doing something for our fellow human beings. And we felt that, unfortunately, the Congress picked a time, not us, but that every day that goes by for us meant more people, more suffering, and that we needed to act. There was no time left to wait.
And we'll get back to the politics in a bit, but I want to talk about your own suffering here. You're fasting for 22 days. Physically, how do you deal with that? And sort of what's your strategy in not having food for 22 days, almost a month?
Well, it was very difficult. You know, I like to eat as much as anybody else.
Right.
I love a good hamburger and huevos rancheros and some of the other food my mother used to cook for me. But I knew, you know, going in that we were going to be suffering, that I was going to suffer really strong physical pain. Mm-hmm. But I accepted that because I felt that in my heart I have a deeper, I have a deeper hunger. And, you know, a hunger for an end to this system that so many people are suffering with, and a hunger, if you will, for justice for today's immigrants who want nothing more than the immigrants that came in the past, a better life and an opportunity to provide for their children. And so I accepted that. I knew that it was going to be hard, and it was. You know, there were days when I got sick and tired of drinking water. There were days when...
Did you squeeze lemon in it at all?
You know, it's... and there were times when I was weakening.
Yeah.
And then people came to visit us and raised our spirits. You know, when the president and the first lady came to visit us, you know, they spent 40 minutes with us. It wasn't a pro forma visit. They were actually Barack and Michelle coming to talk to Eliseo and Rudy and DJ about what this problem is and what are the values we share and what we can do together to make it better. And so with that kind of support, you know, people coming by and dropping off flowers and messages of support, you know, it kept our spirits up. And I must say that with all that I went through, I would not trade it for anything in the world.
You very much wanted, you talked about this fast as sort of framing it with John Boehner and the ball very much in his court in the House. The Senate, of course, passed that bill. Invitations went out to John Boehner. He did not come, however.
No, and we're disappointed that the Speaker chose to ignore us, ignore the plight of millions of people who are suffering in this country. But, you know, I am convinced that he's a good man, and that eventually we will touch his heart, and he will open his eyes and the doors of his offices to begin to actually deal with this crisis, this moral crisis, in a responsible, effective way. So I think that as long as we continue struggling, as long as we continue bringing this attention to the attention of the American people, they will respond and they will help us to convince Mr. Boehner that there is an urgency to this moment and that he has the unique power to help end this suffering. And I'm hoping that eventually we will get a vote in the House of Representatives, and when we do, we'll have immigration reform.
What do you make of critics who say that immigration reform advocates and activists are actually making the wrong argument, that it should be an argument not about, as you frame it here, human suffering or morality? It should really be one about business. The other arguments are that it should be a political argument.
Sure.
Republicans, at their peril, turn their backs on immigration reform. What do you make of that criticism?
Well, I do think that every argument has been made. I think they know, based on the 2012 elections, that they are turning off the immigrant community, the Latino community, and that they will not ever win national office because this country's changing, it's becoming ever more diverse. And if you start turning off the largest growing share of the electorate, you're going to lose. That argument been made, I think
Right.
they understand it. Then I think also business has made a very persuasive argument, as has the Congressional Budget Office, that doing immigration reform will add trillions of dollars in economic growth and new jobs and new taxes. But I also think that it's important that the moral case be made about the fact that this is keeping with the values of this country as a nation of immigrants. So I think those three arguments put together make a very compelling case, and we will have immigration reform. Our country needs it. The Republican Party needs it. And I think this is good for everybody. It's good for immigrants, and it'll be good for our society.
Eliseo Medina, Fast for Families, thank you so much for joining me. You're going to go get a burger soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I plan to. Thank you.
Right. Thanks for joining us. Check out our reporter Krista Thompson's wonderful profile of Eliseo, and that's on WashingtonPost.com.